Welcome to Fresh Perspectives Only. In this episode, I talked to the artists Krotchy and Floontz about their collaborative experimental storytelling. To this point, they've done 9 films together, a variety of 2D, 3D, stop motion. And the reason why we wanted to talk to them today is about their latest endeavor, Kerfuffle, which is an animated short film about the battle between the shadow side and the self. The film reimagines what happens when we give in to fear and anxiety, negative thoughts balloon and hijack a better reality. Our life force is sucked dry. Only a shell of who we really are remains. And if you've not seen this short film, the beauty of this conversation is from the artists yourselves, you'll hear how best to view the short film. The other thing that's really exciting about this, these two collaborating, is with the upcoming NFT drop on Portion. Now, this drop is going to be coming out December 8th, 2021. The Krotchy and Floontz drop consists of 5 different characters: Gorkle, Snuff, Gloopdo, Twazi, and Flurp. The 5 characters are divided between 3 different tiers: gold, silver, and bronze, which allow for different price points and different sizes of numbers for the editions. So in addition to covering the film itself, we also talk about how this upcoming Portion drop is really meant to help them build the Kerfuffle community. A lot of the responses that they got from the film, they're looking to grow on those. You can kind of hear that in the conversation upcoming. So this drop is going to be very exciting. In addition to Kerfuffle, we also talk about each of their individual ways of expressing, where they gain inspiration, and just it's a really fun conversation. These 2 women and these 2 artists are amazing. I had a really enjoyable time with it, so I hope you do as well. With that, let's just tee off the conversation. So how did this project kind of arise? I'm assuming y'all knew each other before. Was this something that kind of appeared over a conversation or over a long period of time? How did this project come about?
Well, one morning I woke up to a text message from Yonk over here, and there was a photo that she had taken of a picture she drew and colored in of a man with a bunch of different colors all over his face. And as soon as I saw it, it was like the story was there. And I called her all manic, like, oh my God, there should be this guy, and he's battling his depression and anxiety, and then all of the colors get sucked out of him, and then there's like a twin double that appears. And then she was all for it. She was like, yes, like we need to find who can do it, and let's figure out the look of it, and let's get this going. And I think we have a really nice dynamic of like hype womaning each other up to no end, and it makes a lot of wonderful things come into existence, and that was Kerfuffle.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of also in a moment in both of our lives where we were really dealing with grappling with emotions that we can really easily get carried away with, because I think we're both we feel really deeply with anything we do in our lives, so it's hard to not get completely sucked away by those emotions. So we wanted to really create an abstract way to help people stay in touch with their like most colorful self.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was the first, I think it was the first about 2 minutes, there was only the single character, and then about 2 minutes in, the second character kind of comes into play. So as you're talking about grappling with emotions, right? So assuming folks listening or watching have seen the video. If not, check it out. It's amazing. And what does that second kind of character represent? Right, because you're talking about kind of the different bubbles or balloons, rather. Is it kind of what you're describing? Those, I guess, the colorful strands as balloons, right? So as that kind of shift happens, what does that second character represent? Is it a mirror image, or I guess what is that relationship like with the first character you see?
It's do you know? I'm sure you can relate in some capacity if you have a neuroses or an anxiety or a fear or something in your brain, that you, instead of taking conscious steps to make healthy choices and not indulge in it, you start to follow it and feed it, and maybe you freak out a little bit. And as you continue to pay attention to it, it grows into something that all of a sudden you can't control any longer. and it gets out of control and will dominate an aspect of your life. Sometimes for some people it'll dominate within minutes, sometimes it takes months, sometimes it's a slow burn over years, and then all of a sudden the person you are, your inner spirit, has completely disappeared, and in place is this copy that's kind of like nefarious and wicked, and then existing simultaneously is this energy, but then also yourself that's very diminished and depleted and kind of a shell of what it once was. So that second duplicate is kind of like the shadow self that's unintegrated and allowed to have free reign and full control.
I love that.
Do you have anything like that, Carson? You struggle with any fears or paranoias?
Yeah. I think it's and those, I think they kind of it kind of changes in different periods of time, right? So I feel like that kind of that transition of this main character that starts out the short and then that transfer to the second, to me, like I really enjoyed that kind of transformation, and I feel like for me it kind of happens multiple times. Maybe not all at, obviously not all at once, but it's kind of interesting to kind of, as you kind of mentioned, there's certain ways in which yourself, you kind of flow to this shadow self uncontrollably, and you can kind of feel shifts in that happening, and it can be for more of an anxiety prone aspect or way in life, but on the flip side, I sometimes feel in a positive way, right, where it's not necessarily it doesn't necessarily feel as conscious of a move. It seems kind of just like a slow, I guess, tide going in and out, and that can kind of ebb and flow for the negative and or positive way of kind of life. It's kind of like you're kind of observing two different people, but you're like a third observer, where you're kind of witnessing who you are today, but also where you might be flowing and transitioning into. So it's like an interesting, I don't know, it's an interesting observation. I thought that was a really cool part. And as that started happening in the short, I actually wrote this down, right? Because I found it really interesting because obviously it's a beautiful film. We kind of talked about the music before we started recording. There's a lot of really cool aspects to the storytelling. The only point within the film that has actual text, like actual language, was at about 140. And it said things looking up. So I was just curious, maybe Yank, maybe you can start this, but what was the significance of those words? And why were those the only words in the film?
Because in the beginning, the mental state that Snurf is in is actually pretty positive. He's whistling, he's looking up at the sky, he's thinking that things are about to shift and change for the better. But he lets that little anxious bug kind of, travel through where he's looking and really take hold of where his path is going. And again, it goes back to the state of life that we were both in at that time, where everything just felt really uncertain and chaotic. And, even when everything's going bad, you still want to believe and try to shift your brain into something more positive, even if it's a little delusional. Mm-hmm. So I think that was like the goal of just like, things are looking up, man. Like, even though everything's burning, I don't know if you've seen that meme where there's the dog and he's surrounded by fire. And he's like holding
yeah.
And he's like, this is great. This is fine. Like, that's kind of a good description of any creative mind, I think, a lot of the time, because being creative and entrepreneur in general can just seem so uncertain everywhere. It's, you make a lot of money, next month you can't pay rent. So it's just kind of an expression of that period of our lives, and feeling really like we're going to get through this.
I love that. Yeah. So sidetracking slightly away from the film, right? So you're saying this is kind of, it was like the one text sparked it, and it was like, oh wow, like this is a story that we want to share, but also has a lot of meaning to us individually or together as it's happening in our real lives, right? So what has been how has the journey been of creating this piece, just for yourselves, and how that might be relating to, you know, the phrase of, you know, things looking up, and how you've kind of, you know, poured your own emotions and how you're feeling into this piece? Like, how has that been for you personally?
I mean, Courtney, I want to hear your opinion on this as well, but I know for me that the past two projects that we did together, Septeria and Kerfuffle, have been a huge lesson in not giving up. And like, you know, we had the funds at the time to get really far in this project, but then halfway through, which was about maybe a year or so, we realized that we had made a mistake on part of the creative, and we had to kind of double back and redo a huge portion of it. And I was, you know, more on the side of like, oh, well, you know, we're going to give up. We can't do this. We can't afford it. And Courtney has always been the person in the project to be like, no, we're going to fucking make it great. We're not going to give up. We're going to find the funds, and it's going to happen. And like, that was a huge lesson for me to just be like, you know what, she's right. Like, the thing that matters at the end of the day is to really like always believe in yourself and never give up. So that was like, you know, through all the hard times, I think it was just a teacher of perseverance.
Hmm.
Courtney,
Yeah, I think in making it, I mean, for me, yeah, I would never, I always want to see it to the utmost peak that it can reach. But just like in watching it over and over and partaking in the process, I've related so much to the metaphor that it's using in so many different areas of my life where it feels like that. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily the question, but I think like there were just direct mirrors between, yeah, making this project, where we were at in life, and what we were depicting within the film. Yeah, I mean, from start to finish, emotionally, then with financially, like it was like a 2 or 3 year arc of that being exactly what the primary feeling was within like the experience of life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, so I've watched it 3 times now. So as you, Courtney, as you kind of mentioned, you watch it, you know, I don't know at what frequency, but as you rewatch it, kind of what do you think? What are you thinking as you're watching it? What sort of emotions do you have? Is it do you view it more of like appreciating the hard work that you guys have put through, or is it kind of a representation of that point of your kind of life and artistic process of going through those various things?
I think it's a bit of both. When I watch it, every time I see it, I'm very proud of it. And the thing that sticks out to me is that I feel like the fusion between Sarah and I, we have a very specific taste, and intuitively and psychically, we just get it. We're on the same level of like understanding which artists we want to work with and what we want to bring out of them. And the work on Kerfuffle is not the typical style that the animators that we worked with are furthering right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of pushed them to go in this very specific direction. And I think that the result it's breathtaking to me. And so mostly whenever I watch it, I just am so grateful and in awe of the imagery. And then it's like these multiple layers of having that understanding and then knowing who to work with, and that flowing and working out, and them being open also to take their work in a different direction. So I'd say that's the primary feeling that I get when I watch it now.
That's good.
And Sarah, I'm not sure what you're experiencing.
I mean, for me, the most exciting part about watching it, and I think that this is what makes me really happy that we don't really put any dialogue in anything we make, is because every time that I watch it, I like seeing it in front of people and then having them reflect what their experience is of the film. Because I've had people who deal with addiction and they think that that's what is being portrayed. Or some people watch it and think it's an extremely positive experience and that they're actually becoming their God self. So it's like, depending on what what point people are in their lives, that's what they see in the things that we make. And that's the thing that I want to further and continue to develop.
That's super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that kind of, do you think that that's a similar trait to how you kind of mentioned you don't put a lot of dialogue in your other works? Is that one of the more enjoyable aspects of kind of your artistic process, do you think?
It's just been the thing that's been being birthed between us without us even being conscious of it. And even like the things that we plan to create in the future are still along the same lines of that. And I think it's just like, you know, our baby doesn't speak a lot.
Just feels.
Feels.
There's communication in other forms. You don't need to be speaking.
Yeah. I think if a piece can stand on its own without words, then that's what really makes it strong. If someone wants to watch something through, because normally you're being so taken in and drawn in by the dialogue. But if you're intrigued without it, I feel like that's the mark of some real art.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned a little bit of kind of future project ideas. Is this of Kerfuffle, right? And you mentioned this in your previous piece. I can't remember the name of that one. I apologize. Yes. Is this a pretty typical way in which you two collaborate on a piece? Is through the way that you've done Kerfuffle, or is it different than the way you typically work together?
Usually the way that ideas happen between us are we will just be either having an experience or we'll be on the phone or just having a really emotional episode. And then something will spark from that. And usually it's like, or not all the time, but I'll kind of have an imagery that I see, and then Courtney will see an entire world built already from that. Like even with future projects, this idea we have called Creatures, I think will be like the most built out version of just emotionally how we see people, and like turning that and abstractifying that into something that is similar to like Kerfuffle or Soteria. But Courtney, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Creatures is our upcoming venture, which would be way more involved than anything we've made before, because it's taking individuals and then we would be having really immersive processes between ourselves and them in getting to know them, and kind of bringing out their deepest unresolved trauma or issues and personifying that in the form of a creature and creating an entire episode and mini world around how that creature behaves, what it looks like, where it goes, what kinds of mischief does it get into, and then in different styles that match the vibe of the people we would be working with. So that's our next project.
I love that. What was kind of the evolution of that been like? I guess basically what you just described of kind of how you work together, the projects that you have worked on, and with in addition to Kerfluffle, and then kind of the Creatures project you have going now. It's like a lot of representation of you know, different types of emotions within an individual and expressing those in these kind of animated type ways, right? And building that world around it, right? When did that idea or that type of collaboration begin? And then maybe over the years, how do you feel like that has evolved to become to where you're at today?
I mean, I'm trying to think of what first sparked Soteria.
A hot spring.
Yeah, hot spring. Yeah, I think that our brains just naturally, for some reason, and I've never even met someone who thinks this way, so we're lucky to have found each other. But anytime that I have an experience, I don't see it as the experience. I immediately see it as this like color or form or sound. So I think that just is naturally where our brains go. And then every time we have an experience, it's actually just turns itself into a story. And then we're good at building that out. I don't know how to express it.
I think we're both extremely interested in understanding other people, and we ask a lot of questions, and we want to know just really quickly, deeply how they're feeling and how they, beyond the surface shit that everyone talks about, like, you know, like, let's go deeper. We're all humans here. And I think that our work is just a growing process of diving further into the human psyche.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, that's really what it's about for us.
Got you. I love that. So let's talk about the this NFT drop with Portion. So there's varying tiers. There's going to be there's a lot of details around them that I can kind of share in the kind of the outro of this, but maybe outside of the details of the NFT drop, specifically dates, what's included and things like that. But what do you hope folks that are a part of this NFT drop can kind of take away from this kind of kerfuffle, I guess, experience and community? Like what is the objective of kind of introducing the NFT drop to this short, and kind of what do you hope people gain from being a part of the project? Because this is kind of a way for people outside of the, you know, the actual creation of the short film to become a part of the community. So is there anything in mind in particular that you have that you would hope people can get out of it?
I'm hoping that people can just kind of get a chance to be closer to the main character, because he kind of is just a representation of all of us. And I really want people to have a piece of that in case we do decide to do like a sequel of Kerfuffle or do physical pieces. That's our future plan, is like to really have tiny sculptures and things like that, so people can start to collect the creatures that we create in future projects. And yeah, just like be able to have these things in their home, you know?
I love that. Yeah. Connection to the work, connection to the meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'd love to start forming and developing a community that's really connected between art, emotion, mental health, psychology, and I feel like we both see a potential to grow it into a much larger universe with creatures too. Like there's a nice crossover there between digital and then metaverse world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to see, kind of as you were describing earlier, kind of the reactions of people who watch the show. I'd be curious to see some of these reactions that'll happen when people start to feel much more attached to that community that you're looking to build, as you kind of mentioned. What has, maybe back on that, because I think that you know, one of the things that I feel like NFTs allow you to do is those kind of more I guess perimeter type ownership or feeling like a part of communities that may traditionally not have been able to, I guess, have such a you know, such a definition, I guess, if that makes sense. But what are some of the highlights? Because you mentioned earlier one of the things you like most is watching people watch this film. I'm just kind of trying to. I'm thinking, looking forward. I'm very curious to see how people react when they start to, you know, feel ownership of this community. So what were some of the obviously don't name names or anything like that, but what were some of your favorite reactions to when you know, put out Kerfuffle?
Oh man,
last night we had just such a nice message from my friend. He played it. He was at a festival doing an installation, and he said that it had moved him so much and brought up so much for him that he had to play it for all of his friends, and that it also brought up so much for them, and he really felt like it was a key to something. So that was a really powerful reaction, I think, to come in out of the blue. I wasn't expecting to hear anything from him.
Yeah.
And that was what he told me. So
That's beautiful. That's great. What about you, Young? Any standouts? Any standout reactions?
I'm trying to think because there's just so. I mean, I think my favorite reaction is when we have people watching it on the correct speaker system, because the music is another element that we added really late, but just the difference of how people get sucked into it is crazy. And I was showing it to this creative director who I just really admire, and had, he was surround sound, had the big screen, and then he was talking, like, he's a very spastic person, very ADHD. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he was just like hypnotized by this thing and watched it all the way through without blinking or like looking away at all. And that was one of my favorite reactions, just like to see how people like really get involved in the world and really don't feel interested in anything else that's going on around them. And yeah, I think that's definitely whenever I can like get people to sit down and not be distracted. It's always
yeah. I took a video at the screening of the reactions watching it, and people were glued, like they didn't look away once.
Exactly.
It's such an interesting video to have of the experience.
Yeah, it's cool because I don't even react to like that to a lot of films. So to be able to be someone who can give that to people is something that I look for in entertainment. So I really hope I can match that.
I think that the kind of digital art, obviously short films and kind of NFTs just in general as a whole, it's the way in which you experience them that is kind of, it's like, it's really interesting of how, because we have screens everywhere, I cocould be on the subway and it could be really loud and I could have one earbud in and someone could send me the link and then I could watch it, and it might be great, but then it's like I'm distracted and there's just like a crazy amount of, you're not really experiencing the art piece basically. And then so I was a civil engineer, right? So like I really like architecture, and my favorite part about, not my favorite part, but one of my favorite parts about going to like an art museum or an art gallery is these spaces are like physically designed to basically make art look as good as possible, like a painting, like the perfect lighting. They don't let too many people in. That's why you have ticketing, space, the kind of like, spatial awareness kind of points you to where you should stand to observe a piece. And I think we're kind of in an experimental phase right now with digital art and visual art, right? Because we have screens everywhere, and it's like, okay, what is the proper way to view this? And one of the events at NFT NYC that we were at, it was the party at Capital on the Thursday, like the last day of the conference. And the first room that you walk in is this beautiful space, but there's really interesting uses of screens and NFTs everywhere. And it was just fascinating because I was like, that was a moment that, like, for me, I kind of could see that, but maybe for your average person who's not really accustomed to the NFT space, like that's a click moment. So I guess folks that are maybe who haven't seen Kerfuffle or who want to watch it again, what is your idealistic way to view it? You mentioned a sound system. Is there like a process? Do you want people to journal ahead of time? Do you want people to make sure that their phone is off? Or how would you idealistically like your audience to view the short?
I mean, ideally, definitely have some type of amazing speaker, the best way that you can hear it. I think it will really bring you into the experience. Watching it with people, I think, is interesting too, because you can compare with them what they thought it meant and then kind of work off each other's interpretation. But yeah, I know that can be a bit hard for anybody, but that's definitely, if you want to experience it to the full degree, then you got to put the extra effort in.
Right. I agree. I think it's worth it too. If if you can, if you're willing to put in a little bit of effort, payoff's way better at the end.
Yeah, but what I think is interesting about the NFT world for creators and even like doing this drop with Portion and everything is from what I've seen of just my little time, I think over like the past year and a half of being watching the NFT world sort of grow, um, is the opportunity for independent artists who have original ideas to make what they truly want to make without too many hands in the kitchen, and to have like be really sovereign and make money for yourself. And I've seen so many artists that I knew hated their job before are now multimillionaires off of just being in the right place at the right time. And I also think that like NFTs in general, if even if NFTs aren't the thing that is the biggest like many years from now, it's kind of opening the floodgates for us to bring our power back and not have those middlemen. um, so yeah, I don't know, I'm really excited to see how it grows. I do think we need to incorporate more of like a community aspect or an in-person aspect, which could be cool to maybe use an NFT as a ticket for a physical event to watch Kerfuffle or to have the full experience, or yeah, something like that.
I think it'd be super cool as you're talking like a 360 screen and then like down, like that would be so tight.
You are Smurf.
Yeah.
I would go to that. That sounds amazing.
That would be so cool.
I would love to go to that. That would be
Let's
great.
make it happen, Carson.
Okay, next project. Got it. I'm your guy. I am your guy. I will make sure. Let's go. I'll be your hype man about it.
Perfect.
360 everywhere you look. Oh, or virtual reality.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That'd
Oh,
be tight.
that would be pretty sick.
Mhm.
Next piece is a VR short film. Like that'd be kind of wild.
Yeah, we were talking about that for one of the Creatures episodes.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll have a follow-up interview about that project. So if you're watching this and this was, filmed a year ago, pause because the new released VR short out today. So check it out. So I always find it really interesting. Obviously, this project means a lot to both of you. This NFT drop on Portion is going to be fantastic for the community to be able to feel more a part of it. But also getting to know you two individually a little bit more was kind of something I was curious about. So I wrote down two things, right? And this isn't like investigative journalism stuff. I just looked at the links that you have on your Instagram pages, right? So we'll start with you, Courtney. So the one that you linked up is an article. It's an article, the Hannah Lee Joshi article you wrote. And then, so what is Fate Finds You? Number one, but then it also seems like you're doing a lot of writing about other artists and understanding their perspectives, and it looks like you take a lot of time into doing that. And just based on the rate that you post, you're doing it very frequently. So to me, that seems like this is understanding other people is a big part of who you are and your art. So maybe just quickly, what is it? What is Fate Finds You? And then how do you feel like that process impacts you, but also in your work?
So Fate Finds You, to me, I've lived so many different lives in a really short time span. And each leap has been much better than the last as I keep trying to determine who I am as an artist. It was a long process to even reach the point of accepting or identifying as an artist. And along the way, Fate Finds You came to be as an affirmation, I suppose, of being on the right path. Like no matter what, as long as you keep striving, like you'll end up meeting your destiny if you're always after your highest potential. And I think that that's kind of been the running theme beneath everything I've been doing lately. I'm so intrigued by incredible artists. I love art, and getting the chance to speak with them and see like where they came from, what they were making when they were children, what their experiences have been like to reach the place they're at now. I think, yeah, it's all like this little universe of fate. And I like explore the different subfacets every way that I can.
I love that. It especially caught my eye because I obviously also like, to talk to artists and understand perspectives. And so I was like, this is cool. How long have you been doing that? When did you start it?
I was in New Mexico. I spent like 7 months in solitary confinement pretty much in New Mexico. And I made the website for Fate Finds You then, but I've been working with street artists since like 2014 in different capacities.
Yeah.
And that's really where the art element came into place because I fucking love art. I love different people's expressions of art so much.
Yeah. You kind of, one of the other things you said is like, it was kind of, it helped you through the process of even for you personally accepting yourself as an artist. Curious, is that process still happening? Or if not, when were you like, you know what, I'm an artist?
Yeah, it happens. I mean, multiple times a week, I would say. Like the other day, I was in the middle of like doing a kickboxing workout and just was like, oh, I'm a writer. I still question like whether or not I'm a writer, even though I have like thousands of pages of writing. I think that the most difficult part of that for me is that I'm not seeking kind of acclaim through traditional routes. So it's been a struggle because I feel like my art is not, it doesn't look like anyone else's and it doesn't follow a traditional path. So that's what's been the hardest to grasp, like this internal validation and this external validation. And you don't need any validation, but
Right.
I don't know. So.
Well, I feel like you're definitely expressing yourself, and I feel like maybe in its simplest form, that is art. And so
Yeah.
It's really fun to see the process and the products that you're producing. So beautiful. That's good. Sarah, Yonk. Okay. Your link. So you have a link tree, right? And so I watched the one video that you had on your link tree, and it was the professor presents meditation.
Yeah.
And I think there was a couple others. So I didn't know what that was before I watched it. What is that first? Maybe a little reason behind that being, because you only have 3 links.
I know.
And that's one of them.
I like I drank like 2 espresso shots and I was like, I gotta give people a place to find all this stuff. So I just made a link tree and I linked one and then I think I just came down from that high and I was gonna come back to it. But yeah, the professor is basically like my first expression really of something as a director. Because I grew up a really huge fan of stop motion, like Nightmare Before Christmas and all of those, just like Chicken Run and like all those really
love Chicken Run.
Yeah, like those messy little clay
such a good movie
creatures. Yeah. So I really wanted to make something of my own, and I just had this like, I don't know if you've ever seen Do the Right Thing, but there's this radio guy, Samuel L. Jackson, who kind of like every morning he'll do some snarky shit on the radio before he plays some nice tunes. And I really wanted to do like a version of that, of this bunny that lives in the sky and he just speaks truths down to earth. And so I ended up partnering with my friend Foster at Moving Mountain, who's a really weird guy. He like lives in the mountains of Seattle and lives in a treehouse. That's a different story. But yeah, so we kind of just partnered on that, and I got with a really great team from Leica, and we ended up making a series about this creature. And I think, at a time, again, it was just like things that I was going through, things that I was inspired by, like Alan Watts or Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I was really getting into mushrooms, so there's a lot of Terrence McKenna in there as well. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to express that through this guy, and hopefully, like, if it's coming through a medium of this creature, people will be able to absorb it better. It's not like they're being told by a human, because I think that's hard for people to listen to.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the first thing, and then moved more into, I kept doing stop motion. I have this other stop motion called FUD. It was a bit more of like an experimental thing. I went into a big experimental phase. And I think in general, as an artist, like, I just like exploring different worlds. That's really what I like to do. Like, I don't think I'll ever be a master of one thing, because I love music, I love piano, I love singing, I love drawing, I love painting. All these things are beautiful to me. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, I just like exploring.
One of the quotes I wrote down from the professor presents meditation was right. So we talked about swimming.
Yes.
Not swimming to race anybody, but swimming to experience the water. That was the quote I wrote down. And then it's also, right, so talking about water, talking about like nature and that experience. It's pretty obvious when you look at your Instagram, is like a lot of it is in nature, a lot of it is outside. Same deal on like TikTok, right? It's like, or the reels that you have, right? It's all in nature.
Right.
What is that? What do you say you like to explore different worlds? Is that what it is? Is there a connection that you have being outside? What is that relationship like?
Yeah, nature is a huge part of my life. I think probably because I was born up north. So I was always in trees. Growing up, I never even knew what the ocean was. So I was like 10. And I didn't have neighbors. So I just had to I was outside a lot. I was always growing my imagination. And I remember this one time specifically where I still can't remember if I actually saw these beings or if they were just my imagination being so strong at the moment. But I was out on the swing and I was just staring at these treetops. And then after like an hour of just staring at them, I saw these like little elf beings like sort of hopping at the tops of it. And they in my memory are so ingrained, look so real, that I still don't know if they were real or not. I mean, I think they're just my buds, but that's like, so I think now I instinctually will go back to nature whenever I'm feeling uninspired or whenever I feel frantic from going to LA a lot. It's really grounding for me. It's really inspiring. Every time I go on a trip, I come back with some type of story. So yeah, I think that's it. It's just a balance of like nature creating, nature creating, nature creating. And
yeah, that's super cool. That's super cool. Courtney, is there anything you do that you like to go to repeatedly to draw inspiration from, or?
I started summiting mountains 2 years ago.
Oh, snap.
And yeah, dude, it
Mic
was like,
drop.
you're the beast.
Oh, that's chill. Okay. Cool.
it was awesome. It's so awesome. Like I had been hiking for a while, and then I think gradually like I went to Zion after a few years, and that felt like an extreme park. And then I ended up in Colorado 2 years ago and did some 14ers, and I was like, oh damn, this is the truth. Like this is the truth. Yeah, there's nothing to me beats that. And I really like the hard endurance, where you want to just turn around for like 7 miles.
Yeah.
Because that come down and that peak is like there's nothing, and the air at 14,000 feet is just in your brain. Yeah. I miss it.
Amazing. I've never summited. Well, I've never summited a mountain, but I need to. I'll add
You
it to my
should.
list. I'll add it to my
Yeah,
list.
you should.
That
You should.
and the next, augmented virtual reality short film. Those are
It's a big list.
those are now on my list. Yeah, those are two things
Yeah.
I'll just focus on.
We'll build a mountain for you in VR that you can summit.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, yes. Let's do that. That sounds amazing. Okay. So we covered Kerfuffle, we covered the process, introduced the NFTs. I feel like now I have an understanding of kind of your sources of inspiration. Is there, with Kerfuffle, with the upcoming NFT drop, with your kind of expression, is there anything else that you kind of regularly tell your audience or, people experience your art? Maybe it's a saying, maybe it's something that you regularly express. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you kind of regularly express? Because we covered a lot, so no pressure.
Yeah. I mean, I think just like fate finds you. I think that's like to wrap it up, that's the takeaway, because we have just been spiraling through something for a couple of years, and more beautiful things keep being birthed out of it. So I would just say, trust your intuition, listen to the little voice in your head, and like
Meditate.
express yourself to the fullest any chance you get.
Yeah.
And meditate. Yes.
Meditate.
Work.
Key.
Do your work.
Yeah.
Do your work, everybody.
Do your work.
Do your work.
Don't give up.
Awesome. Guys, this has been a wonderful, I don't know how long this has been, but it's been great.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Carson.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Carson. Have a good day.
You too. To watch Kerfuffle and check out the NFT drop on Portion, please take a look at the links in the description below.